All right, well, I hope everybody is doing good out there wherever you are, staying safe, and I want to thank everybody for your support here, your continuing support. Um, Trying to get justice for this family. We're not ready to give up, are we? I know a lot of you aren't. Hopefully, hopefully none of you are. 3,000, almost 4,000 members in the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group, and still growing. So that is great. That is awesome. Always good to see that. Good to hear that. Last few weeks have been a little bit crazy for me, so I have not um, been as responsive as I would like to be with the group, but I am really glad that I'm seeing a lot of great comments, a lot of great posts still. And so if you're not a member of the group, please consider doing so. I think there's something for everybody. Again, just the main thing, what the purpose of the group is. The group will be used to investigate the odd circumstances surrounding the deaths. All right, so that should be the focus. That should be where our focus is. And just go through a few other things here. So if we go to thegraystage.wordpress.com, this is where, oh, gotta type it in right, of course, but thegraystage dot wordpress.com, and this is where you can find all of the documents. All you have to do is all the documents, all the photos, scroll down to the bottom of the home page here, and you can get the AVPD reports, the 2 copies of David Crowley's script, The Gray Stage by me. You can look at the Apple Valley Police crime scene photos. We also have the BCA 485 big document, 485 pages. The BCA crime scene images, the BCA 488, which is another 488 page document that we got later on. Lots of stuff in there. All of this stuff I try to use as much as I could for my book. I am working on what I thought was going to be an extended version of the Gray Stage book. Now we'll see. We'll see if maybe if there will be enough content to actually be kind of like a second part, I guess, of the book. The Gray Stage really needed to be focused on the documents, and focused on all of the strange things, and there was a lot of stuff that was cut out just because it just didn't flow, didn't fit, or wasn't at the time, I guess I felt wasn't necessary. But going back through the book, getting ready for our next podcast that we're going to be doing here very soon, probably this weekend on the kitchen laptop, I just realized how much more stuff there was that did not make it into this book, and probably a lot of stuff that should have, and just little things like that. The gun, David Crowley's gun, was it registered to David Crowley? Sophia brought that up. A few other people brought that up too, and it was like, wow. The more I look at it, the more stuff here is like, wow. Okay, I could have included this. I could have included this document. So we'll see. And then I've done myself 199 episodes for the Gray Stage, the YouTube series, the video series. So going through a lot of that, there's a lot of that stuff in there that I probably could have included. I wanted to stay away from a lot of the he said, she said stuff, but I still think there's a lot of good documentation in there that should be added in book form, including the conversation I had with Sidra's friend. I thought there was a lot of stuff in there that needs to be put in print. So that was, I think we went about an hour long, and so there's a lot of stuff there. going back over the notes I had with Sidra, there's a lot of stuff there that didn't make it in. But the stuff that is a little frustrating that didn't make it in is stuff like the documentation about who owned that gun. I don't know if that's in the police reports, so I'm going to have to go back through that. We know that Kamel owned a similar gun, and so just looking at some of the documentation here, this is one of the guns that David Crowley sold back in 2011. A lot of stuff with Danny Mason. A lot of interesting things. The conversations between David Crowley and his lawyer regarding the Gray State LLC, I feel like I kind of dropped the ball on that. I could have included a lot more data there. There was so much to go through at that time. So it's still a question of if I'm going to make an extended version of this book, or if I should really try to maybe just make a second book. And so if you have any thoughts on that, please feel free to let me know, and I'll keep an open mind to that. But so here's the bill of sale. This is for a different Springfield XD purchased. The thing about this Springfield XD is it was purchased by Kamel but sold by David. But because they're married, I guess that's okay. I guess it doesn't really matter. But that was in July of 2009. Is that right? That can't be right. That is right. So she bought a gun in 2009. Interesting. Just noticed that now. Alright. And that gun was then sold later on. So this is some of this guy, Eric Paxier, he's an interesting character too, and he was in the Sloppymentary, A Gray State as well, so you'll find him in there. But sorry I didn't give anybody any notice that I was gonna go live here. I have neglected this channel, this Gray Stage YouTube channel, so I noticed that there's a lot of videos that I need to upload to this channel, and need to give this channel a little more TLC. So let's try to start working on that too. Here's another gun, and Adam Schambauer is another guy who keeps popping up here. And of course, another guy who believes that David Crowley is guilty. So, pretty interesting there. I don't know. The correlation with these people that David Crowley surrounded himself with, and how quickly they all were to just assume that David Crowley was guilty, is very shameful. So Adam Schambauer, maybe just Sham. I mean, that's a pretty accurate term for how this guy acted after David's death, in my opinion. So there was a gun, the AR-15, just the lower receiver, was sold to Adam Schambauer in 2010. So I'm sorry, this is a gift, not a sale. A gift, not a sale. That's right. I got that mixed up a few times before. So let's see, another firearms transfer to David Stark. Never really found out who David Stark was, how he fits into all of this either. But that was in June of 2012, right before, 2 months before the Gray State movie trailer, the 2012 movie trailer was released. So, and this is a Springfield XD, another Springfield XD. It's a pretty popular gun around where David is and everything that he's doing. So there's another one there, but could not find anything about who the gun was registered to. Again, it could be in the police reports, but if anybody has that information, I think that would be a good thing to kind of just to verify, to clarify. So, but anyways, tons of documents if you ever want to go through, and whatever documents you are looking for, you'll find them here. There is a lot to go through. Alright, so I hope that all of this helps in your research. Regardless of your view, even if you think David Crowley is guilty, I think you'll find a lot of stuff in here that will show you why he's not. And below all the documents, you will find the latest episode, whatever the latest episode of the Gray Stage podcast is. Those will all be here too. Try to make that fairly easy for you to kind of scroll through and find more. But yeah, the one I did with Kamel's friend is about an hour long. The Rotten reviews. So there will be bonus shows, some archive shows, and then of course every month there will be a new podcast for the Gray Stage podcast, and you'll be able to find that either on Spotify, on Anchor.fm, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I think it's pretty much everywhere. Google Play. So wherever you're looking for it, wherever you're trying to find it, you should be able to find it. Here's another image of the of how the bodies were found, northeast, and there you go from there. So all that was in a lot of these notes and stuff, the stuff that you'll see where it looks like it's all handwritten stuff. Most of that came from the BCA 488, which I believe is a big document. I mean, it's almost 500 pages, but I think if you're going to go through any document, look at the police report, and look at the BCA, where is it? The BCA lab results and the BCA 488. I mean, really, it's like, well, you gotta look at everything pretty much to really get a full picture to understand, why David Crowley is not guilty. I mean, if you just want to assume David Crowley is, then I guess just don't even look at any of this. But if you want to actually look at the facts, then you would have to look at the stuff and come to the same conclusion that any logical human being would come to, which is David Crowley is not guilty. Still on the Gray Stage WordPress site, if you click on read the book, this will take you to the link where you can either download the free PDF, or you can always purchase it too. You can purchase a physical copy there. Now, if you have purchased, or if you're going to purchase a physical copy within the last month or two, this is an updated version of the book. It's just basically typos, things like that, grammar that fellow researchers have helped me out with. I want to thank you all for that too. I really appreciate that. So I did not have the money to hire a professional editor to go through this. So I pretty much did all of this myself, and had some very talented people proofread this, and that is about it. So if you bought this when it first came out, you'll probably notice some typos, maybe some grammar errors, but if you purchased this within the last month or two, then you have the version without those typos and everything. And I know for a lot of people it's more about the actual research and the document, so it's not a big deal, but I do want to put in as much work, as much effort to it as possible. So a lot of the stuff that was taken out, I'm just going to go back there if I can. A lot of the stuff that was taken out, there's also a section for that, Gray Stage book extras. This is what I started with, and it was going to be, I think this one, if you read this, it's about maybe 20 pages on text, but it has grown, and it's growing. It's about closer to 60 pages now. So that's where I'm at with that, and who knows, I might be able to get maybe a whole nother book out of this. It'll have to be structured in a certain way, but that's possible. So that's what I'm debating now. Just finished two books. Gonna get back into the COVID book that I'm writing in real time, pretty much. But then I need to figure out what to do with the Gray Stage extras. Do I have enough here for a second book? And should it be a second book, or should it just be an extra chapter, which is what the first idea was, is I could just make this all one big chapter and throw it in the Gray Stage book as a bonus chapter, I guess. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm still not 100% sure. But going back to the Gray Stage, or going back to the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group, lots of good posts. This post that has come up here, Solomon Daywood, I hope I'm not butchering your name, but I really want to thank you for dropping in and creating this post here, and I'm going to read this out. I think this is a very important post. A lot of the posts are really good. This question has come up, this area has come up a few times, and I think it's really broken down well here. So here's what he said yesterday at 9:44 a.m., so that would be October 27th. Truly bad work by the police. The police on The Simpsons would have done a better job. The only thing I can really set aside from lie to truth is in regards to the open Quran on the floor. I would not have thought much on this until the documentary stated it was open to pages of forgiveness. I'm here to tell you that is a complete lie. If anything, those verses are asking protection from evildoers and the mischief makers. I have a huge in-depth of knowledge in this area as being a Muslim, and for the last 6 years studying from an Islamic university in Doha, Qatar, and receiving certifications in areas of Quran, Sharia, and other Islamic issues. It was truly what piqued my interest in looking into this more. The documentary and media was pushing a narrative he was asking for forgiveness before killing his family, hence open Quran to the verses like I mentioned. The verses are in reference to seeking protection, not forgiveness, and in all respects to me believing that people other than David did this, and supporting physical facts that just don't add up. No blood on bullet or ceiling. I worked for the summer at Trauma Bioservice Cleaners some of these events, and I find that almost impossible that was the case, as multiple other impossibilities in that house. I apologize for the long novel of an introduction, but I truly hope someone reopens this one day and runs polygraph on those 4 people. Pretty powerful. And by the time that I got to asking this question, I noticed that this question had already been asked, but it is about the Quran, and it is about it is about the blood writing and why Allahu Akbar and then Allah, why it's written twice differently. So he does go into that, and he explains that as well. One of the comments here from Catherine: you're not the first person to come forward and say the Quran is not a forgiveness prayer page. A couple of years ago now, someone who came from Pakistan and has read the Quran their entire life said it wasn't a forgiveness prayer. That's pretty interesting, because the forgiveness prayer, I believe that was Sidra, Kamel's sister, is the one that told police that it was open to a forgiveness prayer. We're not sure what page the police actually showed her, or if they showed her the photos of the quote-unquote forgiveness prayer. But this has been a big thing here, because the Allahu Akbar, the Muslim angle, the Quran, all of that is almost like a second murder scene. It's almost like a second crime scene. And so why is all of that here? What does that have anything to do with David, and why is it being pushed? First it was covered up, but why is it being pushed so heavily in the sloppumentary? I think that's another valid point. Barbara Carpenter commented, I believe the Muslim Quran Association was all stage. If you are proficient in both Arabic and English, would it not be that term Allahu Akbar does not translate properly into English? That if it were a real Arab Muslim who had written it, it would be Allah Akbar, is what she says. So she's saying It would not be the term Allahu Akbar does not properly translate into English. And if it were a real Arab Muslim who had written it, it would be Allah Akbar. My second statement would be that the term Allahu Akbar is a takbir. I don't know, not sure what that is. Exclamation or phrase that is spoken. Interesting. For example, if you greet someone during a happy event, you might use the term Allahu Akbar, but it is never used in a negative sense when speaking, and that it is a spoken expression, not written. It only appears in 2 or 3 places in the Hadith and in the Arabic dictionary, of course. Last, I understand that Allah Akbar means that Allah is great, where Allah is the subject. However, Allahu Akbar, when attempted to be translated into English, makes Allah the object, not the intended subject. This would be improper, which is why I feel the term Allahu Akbar has no written translation in English. I understand in Arabic and many other European countries the passive tense is used, but that is rarely used in English any longer, so an attempt to translate Allahu Akbar into English, which would mean that Allah is the greater or the greatest, and would be wrong as written, because Allah is not the subject in written English translation. My contention is that it was staged by someone who had a smattering of knowledge on spoken Arabic expressions, but not how they were used. The person who wrote on the wall was not fluent in both Arabic and English. The Muslim connection was a red herring. Your comments would be welcome. And he sure does comment here. I'm going to read 1 or 2 of these comments. Barbara Carpenter, very impressed with your details on the topic. The takbir can be used in various ways. For example, in our prayers, we open our prayers with Allahu Akbar, and almost every movement requires the takbir prior to those movements. Now that it's used in the passive in prayer, as for greetings, it's never used. The greeting will always be a salam alaikum, and the reply is equal or better as a requirement in Quran and Sunnah. Now, if we are chatting after our salams, and it's about something amazing, like let's say a beautiful sunset, then one could say Allahu Akbar. Now, in the possibly yelling Allahu Akbar, this is usually seen on the battlefield. When success of a battle or explosion of something, Allahu Akbar will be yelled. But linguistic, it all means the same in English. God is Allah, great, Akbar. God is, which is Allah, great, Akbar. So Allahu Akbar. The Arabic English translation of most is almost backwards into what we are used to in English. This is something that when English speakers like myself start to learn Arabic, we can't really think in English terms. A small example. In English we say bylaws, book. In Arabic is first and the bylaw is last. The book of bylaw. Billah. I know I'm mispronouncing this. I don't speak Arabic, sorry. Al-Kitab Bilal. Or another example is where are you from? In Arabic it is from where you. It's somewhat complicated to explain over text really, and for me to read it too, but he says it's somewhat complicated to explain over text really, but I hope that kind of gives you a brief understanding and direct translation. Because some things cannot be directly translated really. It's more implied with an additional or removal of a letter. As for the writing on the wall, that's a tough one really. I agree that someone did definitely have a smattering of knowledge of the expression indeed. And honestly, I do agree with your findings on who you think wrote on the wall. And the connection was a red herring. I hope I somewhat answered your questions and didn't add more confusing things. And they go back and forth kind of and so by the time that I had gotten, to ask this question, Barbara had already asked everything I pretty much wanted to ask. I'm actually going to read a few more here. I got a little time we're still live here, October 28th, 2020, and be live here for a few more minutes, and then I'll just go into some of the Gray Stage replays. And I want to thank everybody who has participated in those, everyone in the chat room who has helped with all of that. And the main reason is the main reason why I replay all these is because every day it's like there's new people that are just learning about this case, that are curious about this case, that are trying to get caught up. And it's almost impossible. You cannot, this is not one of those cases that, the way that I feel is this is not a case that you can just, look at a couple times and just, within a couple days, really think that you have it all figured out. I think the more knowledge people have, the more research that they do, the more documentation, it can solidify one's view, but it can also change one's view too. And a lot of people that are just learning about this they've only either looked at the 2012 trailer, they've looked at some of the conspiracy theories on this, and they've looked at the sloppumentary, and that's really it. So they're coming here to this group, to the YouTube channels, to find out more, to learn more, and that's a great thing. So I try to replay those as much as I can until we can get the case reopened, and then I'd probably stop that for a while, until we can get some solid conclusions about this, or at least till we can get the police to admit that David Crowley is not guilty and there's possibly a murderer out there right now. Whichever comes first. Okay, so Barbara says, I'm impressed. When I said in my earlier post Allahu Akbar would be used in a good positive way, it would be after an initial greeting, after meeting. If I tell you in a conversation that I got a much better job, I think you might reply Allahu Akbar on my new position after the greeting as Salam Alaikum. I know I said that wrong, and I know I've heard that before. She also says, I think it would be never used if I told you that my mother had recently died. I know it is a call to prayer, also a positive event. I know it is used in battle, but is that not a usage that for which it was not intended originally? We may hear people use the term in the news, but to a non-Arabic speaker, it would be a negative use. Allahu Akbar is a positive takbir by my reading. Spanish is similar. I'm glad she brought that up. Japanese is also similar too. When I'm watching my Japanese wrestling, when they announce the Japanese wrestler, they announce they announce the first name and the last name, but when it's translated into text, it's backwards. So their last name in English is pronounced first. So I understand what they're saying. It's a little bit backwards there. Spanish is similar. In Spanish it would be El Libro de Badal, which translates to the Book of Badal. Where are you from? In Spanish it would be De Donis Eres, which would literally mean from where are you. The police would not have bothered to look at language or religious nuances that only pose as being religious and correct Arabic, like the page in the Quran, all staged by someone to confuse the police, who would not likely have any Muslim authority on staff to say this is not right. Someone with no conscience did this to throw the police off the real motive and make the police decide upon David was a murderer. I blame police for not immediately calling in the FBI, as they would have the experience and the personnel to know it was staged. Not only those who have direct knowledge of Arabic and with the Muslim faith Quran, but also forensic people who would know how to collect evidence and view a crime scene for inconsistencies, all pointing to a staged crime. Thank you for the information and help. It bothers me that it would seem so stereotypical to add in a religious element to throw off police to the easiest conclusion that David had disintegrated mentally. or that David was financially finished, his movie rejected, he had become mentally ill from the obsession with the film, and throw in a few Muslim references to add religion to the mix. But the opposite is true. He had money. He was not a big spender. He was close to signing a deal for a series, and he was interested in many spiritual teachings, so no evidence that he was fanatical toward one. Thank you. Very good. So curious to see what you all think about all of this. Allahu Akbar, Allah Akbar. Why is it written in two separate places? I'm going to scroll down here to see. So I had asked, and thank you for this info, what about Allahu Akbar written in blood on the living room wall and submit to Allah now written on a notepad? Why is Allah written different? And this is one thing that has really, really bothered me. Why is it written differently? So I'll just read some of this explanation here. And I have not responded to him yet, to this person yet, but I do hope to respond very soon. And he says, that's an extremely good question. That Dhamma I was speaking about is always there, but pronouncing it depends on where it is in the sentence, and if it's a subject or predicate information, like noun to adjective, or in Islamic terms, connect Allah to his attributes. There is another saying we use in Islam that uses this Allahu Alam, which means Allah knows best. But you wouldn't apply the same rules to submit to Allah or submit to Allah now, because I believe now is the verb. Even though the Dhamma is still present in writing, it's known not to pronounce it. Like I said, Arabic can be a very complicated language, but I don't think the difference of terms that were used Allahu on the wall and Allah on the pad of paper signifying any high level of understanding of Arabic, but rather just knowing Allahu Akbar is with a U, and anything mentioned with Allah other than the Takbar has no U in translation. Very interesting. He says, you will see the Dhamma, but I would just write and say this as Allah. Even submit to Allah. Allah will be at the end of a sentence, and the word is surrender instead of submit. Ooh, that's pretty interesting too. This is, yeah, so it sounds like Barbara is right on, that it's someone who has a smattering of knowledge. They wanted it to look like this. Maybe to shut up the family, shut up Kamel's family. Because I think Kamel's family in the movie, in the sloppumentary, they were a big target for that. I mean, after speaking with the family friend of Kamel's family, that's exactly what it was. Like, they were being set up too. It seemed like, they had no idea what the sloppumentary was really going to focus on. When they saw an early copy of it, they didn't understand the point Eric Nelson was trying to make, and it was all just to make Kamel look crazy too, to if not subliminally promote this pack theory, maybe even worse, if not consciously or subconsciously, I don't know. But that film, it's almost like an MK Ultra film, I guess you could say. That's the best comparison that I could get. So surrender to Allah, and you would not even pronounce the Allah. It would be more like Ilah because of the Shada symbol on Allah. It's very confusing. I will make a small video. So I need to look at this video. I look forward to that. That would be great. So it looks like he did make a video. I wonder if this is it, if we can actually watch this here.
Again, this is a message in replying to Barbara's comment or questions. Definitely one of the things I can't type out. I can't text it because we'll lose. Some things are just better explained because then we have intention and stuff like that behind it. You're finding out very quickly that the Arabic English trade-off for words doesn't always work. when I first started learning Arabic and reading and writing, I found that I had the same problem. Like, words meant one thing, it just doesn't flow. Like, you said yourself in Spanish, the context of where nouns go and stuff like that are similar to Arabic as well, and even French is like that too. And but Arabic goes one step further. Well, I wouldn't say one step further, but I find the complicated thing with it is there's not general trade-offs for words. There's general words for things of items, like cat, ball, dog. But when it comes to even like jump, action words, there's those words. But when it comes to things like submission, like, how do you define it? Like, how do you define a submission, right? So I can see where a little bit of the confusion comes in, where it's submit to Allah, but also Islam means submission. But we also got to remember that Islam also means peace, right? So it all depends on the context in which you're using it. We obviously in the English language have something similar. It's the word cool. Cool can mean two things. It can mean I'm cool, like I'm doing all right, or maybe better than all right. Or it can mean cool, it's not cold and it's not hot. It's cool. It's cool out. Or, I had a situation where my wife came in the house and she asked me how I was doing, and I said, I'm cool. She says, it's not cold in here. Are you sick? Of course I laughed. I said, no, I'm doing good. Then I had to explain to her what I meant. And she knows English. She's fluent in English, but she's only been at it 10 years. So she has that issue that we're having, which we have it going from English to Arabic. She has it going from Arabic to English. Now, I hope I'm not getting on different tangents. I'm just trying to explain that you will never have, I'm not going to say never, but it's a complicated language. Some things are very expressive, and it's all in how it's used, much like English. So, for instance, if I wrote a letter to a friend of mine, or I want to ask a question to somebody in Saudi Arabia, and they didn't know English at all, and I typed out this letter in English and used Google Translate, yeah, it wouldn't work. You'd almost be running the risk of maybe insulting the person. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it's that kind of language. It's really different in that sense. Like, I might throw up a screenshot. I got a couple friends on my Facebook where they'll put something up in Arabic, a long thing, and then Facebook will do a translation below. And if you read the translation below, it's just like, wow, what are these guys talking about? So enough said about that, and I'm glad you've noticed that, because a lot of people don't notice that, but that doesn't really affect the English, what was written. What does affect what the English, what was written, was the intent of who wrote it. Like, I think you mentioned that. And that's the key. That is the whole key, is what was the intention of who wrote it? Because in Islam, we don't usually say submit to Allah now. We do say submit to Allah, and we say it quite frequently. It's basically the intent behind that is to submit to the will of Allah. But because, the will of Him, we believe that everything is in control from Him. He's the creator, sustainer, maintainer of everything, right? Nothing happens without Him, good or bad, to us. So if we're submitting to the will of Allah, whether it's good or bad, then we're submitting to what we believe comes from Him. And only He can remove that hardship from us. It's much like if your neighbor parked a car in your driveway and blocking you in your car or in your driveway, and you want to leave. Well, where are you going to go? You're going to go down the street to another neighbor's house to tell him to remove the car? No, you're going to go to who is blocking you to remove this obstacle from you. And we believe the same thing. So if we have obstacles in our lives and hardships in our lives, we actually say it. Submit to Allah. Or if we say it usually to ourselves, but it also sets it to another brother or a sister to another sister. That, I'm having some hardships in my life and things are not just going the right way, especially with COVID right now. Like, you'll hear it a lot now. People sometimes are losing their businesses, and, people say submit to Allah, like it's within His control, submit to Him, pray, ask Him to remove the hardship, whatever, right? So that's one end of it. And this is why I think I mentioned in one video that when that came up on the documentary, the photo of that particular note, my wife and I were looking at it and was like, wow, because that's a deep statement. That is a deep statement. To say that, this is usually reserved, not reserved, I don't want to say reserved, but it's something commonly said by Muslims. Submit to Allah. And the now part, I can't see why that would be used. This is not something. I've actually asked a few other colleagues, brothers, or teachers of mine about this statement. They would say the same thing. It's we would never say this. We would say it maybe to somebody who maybe was, really, that was Muslim and who wasn't practicing the deen that much, and who was starting to get involved in maybe whatever. They were coming away from Islam for whatever. We would say, you need to submit to Allah right now. It's not tomorrow, not later. You need to do it now, right? But honestly, without the intent, it's really difficult for me to, say one way or other why the statement was put down, and what context it was trying to be used in, by either David's hands or the other perpetrators in the house. It's definitely left me scratching my head for sure. Because, like I said, it's not a statement you hear very often being used. Even Allahu Akbar, it's not a statement that you hear. Like it all actually. That note actually, that note actually contradicts a lot of stuff that they say. Like, I don't know. The only other negative form of context I've heard this statement, submit to Allah now, is around 2014, 2015. Well, maybe even before that, where it's basically some of these radical Muslims with hostages, and they're making videotapes. I don't want to get into details, but they have the hostages, and it was around that time, I think, they were addressing a lot of videos to America and Britain, and they would have hostages, and they would say, submit to Allah now, withdraw your troops, submit to Allah now. And then, they would do away with the hostages. That's the only other time I really heard it being used, really, like, in that context of submit to Allah now. As more of a command, like somebody telling somebody else to do it, like submit to Allah now or else, which is generally not something we practice, really. It's, forgive me if I'm rambling on. I'm just in awe with the note too, and I wish I could offer one way or another, to shed some light on, an exact why somebody would say that. It's not an easy statement to, decipher and say, well, this is the intention of the person who wrote it, and this is why they wrote it. It's definitely, we're missing big keys here, right? If David wrote it, what was his intention with it? If somebody else wrote it, what was their intention from writing it? Because like I said, it totally contradicts the rest of what happened, really. If David wrote it, what did he mean of writing it? Was he going to, what were they trying to set the scene like? Like, he killed his family. He wrote Allahu Akbar on the wall. Lots of blood. Then went to his office. Thought he wrote himself down a to-do list. Open the rise. Oh, and in just in case I forgot, I need to submit to Allah now. And then go out back into the living room. Grab the Quran. Rip pages out of it. Hey, we found this place in the Quran. We're going to read it and shoot myself. This is way too much inconsistencies. Like, way too much overlapping hypocritical things going on there. It's just, I was told many years ago by a judge, when we have so many inconsistencies, generally it's a lie, because there's lots of inconsistencies. Truth is very easy to follow, and with what they're trying to portray and what's actually happening, it's very contradictory to religiously to each other, actually. Like, if they were trying to, at one point I think they were trying to sell the notion that that this whole Islam ripping out pages and all this kind of stuff and the writing on the wall was some kind of salt in the wound towards his wife after he killed it. Like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Especially with the note, submit to Allah now. Like, how does that come into play? Was it trying to mean in the context like, well, submit to Allah now? You can't. You're dead. It doesn't make any sense. It just, and I'm glad you brought up that point. And I think I've seen a brief on the A's you were talking about, and yeah, he didn't write that. Yeah, his A's were very particular. You don't change your handwriting, just because, his writing was pretty constant, really. So I hope I've helped a little bit. Sorry if I couldn't help anymore. It's, like I said, it's just one of those things that I don't want to speculate, and I really don't want to say one way or the other what he had in mind, if he did write it, or the killers. On that side, like I said, I think they were trying to paint a picture. The one picture where, he flipped out, killed his family, felt overwhelming remorse. For some reason, wrote Allahu Akbar on the wall. God is the greatest. Went into the office, or vice versa, who knows. Wrote, submit to Allah now, because I got asked for forgiveness. Went back out, opened the Quran to some apparent verses that meant forgiveness, according to the media and everybody else. And ripped out pages for some reason, and shot himself after asking for forgiveness. To verses that had nothing to do with forgiveness. Even the pieces of paper that were on the ground, I looked at those surahs. They had nothing to do with forgiveness. There's that one little clip. It just had the number 57. Well, that was from Surah Al-Furqan, and it has just to do with you'll be getting no reward other than walking the straight path. So you'll be getting no riches other than just walking the straight path and doing good in the name of Allah. And the other one was Surah Nahl, from ayats 10 to 13. This just has to do with reaffirming the existence of Allah and the bounties on His creation. So it had nothing to do with forgiveness at all. So I don't know what they're trying to sell, but I ain't buying it. Can't sell no freezer to this Eskimo. But I'll let you go, and any other questions, I'll be sure to try to help more than this one.
Well, that was great. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that. Let me just like that one. I'm gonna also subscribe here. Okay, I was gonna leave a comment, but looks like he has the comments turned off. But I would definitely like to maybe get him on one of our conference calls, and I think doing a whole show going over all of the writings, all of the Quran pages. I think this would be a person that would be able to help us out to understand what those pages mean. So I'm definitely going to like this video, respond to it, and try to see if we can do an in-depth show with this person, and that will be great. I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna go ahead and jump off here at this point. I'm going to, let's get into some replays here. But the other thing that I would love to ask this person is about jinn, Jinn, and that is because there is the question about jinn, demons, in the English translation, and I do want to know more about that. So what his view is on that. I was watching a YouTube video about the Chris Watts case, and it's an interesting video because it goes through the police CCTV or the police body cam videos, and in the body cam videos there's voices that are heard. A child's voice, perhaps the mother's voice. In another body cam video, the police, after the deaths happen, after Chris Watts, his family is murdered, there is a video of police that are called to the house because they think there's somebody in there. Somebody reports seeing a woman in the house. The police go there, they look around, the garage light is on, there's nobody there, but in one of the videos there is a shadow behind one of the cops. And I bring this up because trying to consider all possibilities with the David Crowley case, I do consider the possibility that jinn were involved, that demons were involved. It doesn't mean that it came from David's side. It could have been there for a long time. It could have came from Kamel's side, but it seems in the Middle East it's more common. It's like in Russia, in the Russian area. My father-in-law was telling me about some of these stories about demons, about seeing things, and these are not crazy people. These are not insane people. And so I think the whole demon thing was supposed to be in Eric Nelson's film. When Kamel's family had their footage taken out, all of that gotten taken out. So that's why it's kind of out of place. A lot of the things that you see in Eric Nelson's film regarding Kamel seeing things, hearing things, they don't go into it more. They just kind of like, well, she's just crazy. But I wonder if there is any footage, any of the home footage from David, from his wife, where maybe there is some shadows lurking in the background. Maybe there is something there. And in the chapter, in the Gray Stage book chapter, where I talked with Kamel's sister, she had mentioned she saw something, and I don't think she's crazy either. These things are real. And so I do wonder if there's any. I believe there is involvement in it. I don't know how deep it goes or anything. It is the only thing to me that would explain. Not the only thing. It's one of the only things that would explain a police cover-up. Because they're just not going to go there. But again, I'm keeping an open mind to it, and I really don't care if people think that I'm crazy for even going there. It doesn't matter to me. But I'd like to ask this person about that, about the jinn, get some more information on that. I bring this up because David Crowley, we know that there was at least one camera in the house, and the camera was pointed towards the Crowley family garage. I always thought that was weird. But then looking at the Chris Watts case, and where the light was coming on was in their garage. Just a wild theory, just throwing it out there. Maybe David had cameras set out to try to catch something, to try to catch some footage of it. David had the same technology that a lot of these ghost hunters use. So who knows? But if he caught something, I'd be pretty interested in looking at the family footage, at his footage, to see if they did. That'd be the first thing that I would look for. The camera in the garage is never mentioned. We had some of our members who pointed it out that it was even there, and then we had the owner at the time, who has since moved out, the owner that lived there after David. She was able to show us photos of where you can see that the camera was pulled out of the house. So, and it's just a camera. It's not like there be any footage on that particular camera, but it would just be interesting to know what the purpose of having a camera in the garage was, and if there were other cameras set up around the house to try to catch something. I think if David was willing to film his wife's experiences, or her recounting these things, it's possible. Maybe he was trying to catch some footage of a jinn. All right, now I'm way off topic, way off. So I hope you all have a great day, and I'm going to go ahead and play some replays. God bless you all. Until next time.